Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Imagine standing in a courtroom. The evidence against you is overwhelming. Every thoughtless word, every selfish act, every hidden sin is laid bare. You know you are guilty. The law knows you're guilty. The judge knows you're guilty. And then something impossible happens. The judge steps down from the bench, stands beside you, and says, I will take the sentence. You are free. This week we are looking at what I call the ation words, the big words at church that tend to end in ation. And that story I just told is a good description of our next word, justification. Justification is God's declaration that sinners are righteous because of Christ. It's a small but important story way back in Genesis. Abram is the last in a long line of people descended from Noah, but he's gotten old. Really, too old, it seems, to ever have children. Even more, this was a time when people worshiped little stone idols they kept in their homes. That was the situation when God came to Abram and promised him that he would have a son. More, God promised that he would be the father of a great nation. God took Abram outside and invited him to count the stars. Of course, there were far more stars than Abram could count. So shall your descendants be, God told him. So in a time when Abram was old and had no children, and his wife was well past her childbearing years, in a time when people worshiped stone gods they could see and touch, Abram dared to believe and hope in a God he couldn't see and touch, and that only he heard. Abram dared believe in the promise this God made. And that's when God reckoned it to him as righteousness. Now, this becomes very important later on. Later on, this same family of God was delivered from slavery in Egypt and then received the Ten Commandments and all the other laws God gave them. The thing was, they understood all these rules as how one gets right with God. Following all the rules and laws was their means of salvation, the way they were righteous before God. Many, many years later, after Jesus died and rose, St. Paul suddenly saw things very differently. In his view, Jesus had done everything for our salvation. In his view, we no longer had to earn our way into God's good graces. God declared us righteous as a gift in grace because God loves us. And to support his point, Paul turned back to Abram. Abram didn't do anything to cause God to declare him righteous. God spoke, and Abram simply believed. There was no action, no rules to follow, nothing to do. In pure love, God declared Abram righteous. Then Paul goes on pointing out that this happened long before the Ten Commandments and other laws were given. So while the Ten Commandments and other rules were good for following, after all, they were given by God for our good, following them was not the means of our salvation. Keeping all of them was not what led God to declare us righteous. The story of Abram teaches us that God declares us righteous as a gift of love and grace. It's God's action, not ours. We choose God only as a response to God already choosing us first. Let me say that line again because it's important. We choose God only as a response to God already choosing us first. God reckons it to us as righteousness. What God promised to Abram was fulfilled in the death and resurrection of Jesus. We deserve nothing but condemnation, but instead it is Jesus who is condemned, and we are set free. This is what we mean with the word justification. It's a gift. It's a gift of love. It's a gift of grace. One of the things I wish people knew more about is the funeral pall. Now, I've talked in other Pastor Gary Live episodes about that more fully, and today I want to mention only a part of this important cloth. You see, when we have a casket or urn, we cover it with a large white cloth for the service. That cloth is called the funeral pall, and while we use it at a funeral, it is actually a baptismal garment. What it says is that as this person was wrapped in the righteousness of Christ at their baptism, so now in their death they are likewise wrapped in that same righteousness. As we enfold the casket or urn in the pall, I think of it like God enfolding the person into God's everlasting arms of love. Because of Jesus, in love and grace, God reckons the person as righteous. Writer Philip Yancey defines grace this way. Grace means there is nothing we can do to make God love us more. And grace means there is nothing we can do to make God love us less. Grace means that God already loves us as much as an infinite God can possibly love. The ation word for today is justification. It's a gift. It's a gift of love. It's a gift of grace. Thanks for sharing these moments with me. And remember to let this day belong to God.